Hi, so I'm going to do this short little tutorial on how to draw desserts and sweets, candy and all that stuff, and incorporate them into your illustrations. You can use candy as a cute little addition to your art. There's a bunch of amazing food art out there, so if you want to make something similar, I've put them into 4 simple steps. For this example, I'm going to draw candy, some lollipops, hard candy and wrappers and stuff like that, a parfait, and then a cupcake. You can obviously look up whatever it is you want to draw. These are just general steps to draw mostly any dessert. Just like in gesture drawing for drawing characters, looking at photo references of the specific food you want to draw will help a lot. Through the reference images, drawing out the general shape will help you understand how the object works. So practicing the general outline will help you get used to drawing it. Personally, I use Pinterest for reference images, but you can get them from anywhere. Honestly, Pinterest is my home base. It's got all the best stuff. And since a lot of artists use it, there's a lot of pictures on there that make amazing references. Be sure to get some variation in the images that you choose, like a slice of cake from 2 different angles that you would most probably want to draw it at. It won't be very helpful to practice drawing something at an angle that you will never use, so keep it basic. I'd suggest doing simple 1-minute sketches without too much detail, which is just like the outline of the object. It's just to map it out and get a general feel of the body of the object. Spend about a maximum of a minute on each sketch. The brush that I use for sketching can be found on the Clip Studio Asset Store. It's got a bunch of different brushes that you can use for different styles, but my favorite is the Pache brush, I'm not sure how to say it. It's by Nugong, and the content ID is over here. I'll link it down in the bio. So now that we've got our basic sketches of the outlines done, we just have to know how to build it up to make the final result. Break it down into basic shapes, rectangles, triangles, etc., and try to use 3D shapes for a more 3D final look. For example, a cupcake can be broken down into a short cylinder for the cupcake part, and then a cone for the icing. There's many different looks to every dessert, so looking at more references can help you decide which you like the best. It can be as simple and plain as you want, or you can go for something super complex with lots of toppings and crazy icing. Either way, all you have to do is break it down into basic shapes. From the bigger shapes, like a cone and cylinder, you can break it down further into smaller shapes that make up the bigger part. Those shapes will fit together to form the structure. Some tools that can help you out on CSP are the Subtool Figure, which can help you draw the basic shapes faster and cleaner without needing to do it yourself. You can use these to outline the broken down shapes and then use those as guidelines. Then there's Material 3D. Under Primitive, you'll find basic shapes, which will help you understand 3D shapes and the way they distort with movement. Then there's CSP Assets, of course. Over here, you'll find full 3D renders of the specific object that you want to study, like, for example, cakes, and then you can use those as references. It saves you a lot of time. And well, the last 2 steps basically taught you how to learn the anatomy of the cupcake or parfait or whatever you want to draw. All that's left now is to put it into practice. Sketch in the details of the dessert now. Take the guideline sketch of the shapes and then add in the smaller details to make it look smoother. To make a more cartoony effect, you can play with the sizes, proportions, roundness, etc. All of that depends on your art style and the kind of look that you would like to achieve. The more details that you add, the more realistic it's gonna look. For my personally cartoony, non-realism style, I prefer to simplify the details and make it look less realistic. I also prefer thicker lines. For beginners, while drawing the final sketch, make sure to keep it on a new and separate layer, which you can create by clicking on the new raster layer. This helps you change the opacity of the first sketch layer to make it easier to draw your final sketch. A good tip is not to stick too hard to the guidelines and to decrease your opacity all the way. It's easier to realize what the shape of your final line art is going to be with a lower opacity. The final step is, of course, line art and rendering. This depends heavily on your art style and preferences. Personally, I rely heavily on line art, so I do my line art, fill it in, and then render pretty minimally. I like the more 2D look to my art, so I prefer not to render too much. The more you render, the more realistic and 3D it's gonna look. Another good tip when drawing a line art is to lower the sketch layer's opacity all the way to around 10%, where it's just barely visible, so you're able to see exactly what your line art is gonna look like without the sketch. That'll prevent your line art from looking too different from your sketch. Always remember to check that you're on a separate layer before you start your line art. Create a new one on top of the sketch layer with new raster layer, and you can also set your sketch layer as a draft layer, which will mark it with this blue bar. The draft layer makes it so that the sketch layer will not be taken into consideration while filling in color. You can also keep different parts of the illustration in separate folders, like the toppings of the cupcake or parfait, and this can help with making adjustments to sizes and to easily duplicate objects, etc. In tonal correction, there's the hue, saturation, luminosity option, which helps bring up this slider, and you can use it to adjust the colors. It helps to easily change the colors of the things that are already colored or needs a slight alteration. It can be really helpful with things like the candies to make different colored candy and bring in a lot of variation to the piece. Now that we've made all those sweet treats, we can put them into our illustration. Make sure to add some shadows for depth to the desserts and integrate them properly into the image, just so that they don't look out of place. To make the image pop a little more, I added this white border, which you can easily add by going to the auto select tool and refer to all layers. Then you just click this third option, which inverts the selection so it's only your image selected. Then you go to edit, outline selection, where you can choose how thick you want the line to be. And yeah, that's it. That's the illustration. Thanks so much for watching this. Hope this tutorial helped. Bye!